So welcome to the second part, the design tier. Let's see what we already built there. Where do we want to start? Let's go with the camera. I didn't change anything yet, and I will leave the bouquet out for now till we find the perfect composition. So as I said, it might be interesting to see something from the window in the back, but this look doesn't look too good. I want to have more perspective. So the whole sculpture is a bit more thin. Cool. Then let's see. Well, first of all, I would say the wall on the back is a bit too close. It can go a little bit more to the distance. And to give this whole theme a bit more space. And you can see I also copied from the one I already did, some tiles on the ground. It's just some concrete texture down there. Really nothing fancy. So the floor material I built here. Let's have a look onto that. That's this guy. So just some concrete. And we need to change the floor itself. We want cubic mapping. And it can go up a little bit. So something like that. So we have a little edge in here, which is nice. And yeah, that's cool. For now, let's drag and drop the same material on the back wall. And also here I want to have a cubic mapping. And let's give ourselves a region. And I think there's tiling happening on the back. So just the best way to check that is if I'm loading a UV checkerboard material in there. And if I'm pressing C for the preview, I see that there is tiling happening. So the material needs to be roughly double the size, so we won't see the tiling. So let's start with 180. Cool, that's that for now. And this can still go a bit more to the back, I would say. Nice. Then the tiles on the floor, they can also go more to the back, which is kind of nice. We have a little imperfection on the ground here. It's just cubes on the floor, by the way, so nothing really fancy to explain here. And also, just a quick thing, I still have my world grid here and my work plane, so I don't need to see that. Cool. Then we already have a lot of things happening here. And there's a material, aluminium. We will drag and drop that onto the mirror object, and the material itself is just aluminium, and I copied some scratches in there to give it a little bit of imperfection. And we need, of course, also a bit more of the bevel of the side, like so, only a tiny little bit, and it's always nice to have a bit of an imperfection. And if I'm now looking at this thing, I think we could have more of the reflection part. I really like the look of it, so let's scale this a bit up and place it in position. So perhaps narrow was better, but the length like that, and perhaps even a little bit bigger. And I'm making it bigger because I think this is really interesting to see the reflection from this top part in the floor as well. But overall on the right side we have a bit too much, so let's cut that a little bit off. Let's check with our intersections a little bit to back. Yeah, that's nice. So this is a cool detail which we didn't have, and I'll give it a quick save away from the animation into the design part. where do we continue? Well, first of all, let's have a look more at the materials and textures, and then we'll go into the light, because the light's already like set up a bit, and my like starting scene with my basic light setup is already creating quite some interesting light effects. And without manipulating anything, I already like it. We have some shadows on the wall, and what do we need first? Let's continue with my ropes. Then you can see they are quite low poly because of the simulation, and let's change that first. So in the ropes, I'll give everything a redshift tag in the redshift folder, redshift object, and let's override the geometry and as well activate displacement. And for now, redshift crashed. That's awesome. Good that we just saved. So cinema's back on track, and let's go and get rid of the screen space adaptiveness, and I only want to have 2 subdivisions, and the minimum edge length is 0. So there's a little bit of subdivision going on, but not too much. Let's go back into my redshift render view, wait a little bit till the IPR is ready to rock. Let's start to create some materials for the ribbons. So, well, if you watched the tutorial from last month, you can easily go just to Substance and download some of their great cloth materials and use them. As I said the last time, these are really the best materials I got so far. So again, here, Substance Designer, go to source and then go to source, and then you can click into the materials which you need into your fabric. And nice, they have lots of nicey materials. But I already got some. So also from a previous tutorial, when I open a new cinema scene, I have this basic material which was automatically created, and it represents like a already basic grid. So then I just need to go into my materials and go into my fabric material and have a look what we want. And in the previous design tutorials, I was always using the free materials, so I could give them to you, but in this one I will use them from Substance, so please go there and download them yourself. And let's see, what do we want? Yeah, this is the one I was looking for. It's really great. So Taffetas fabric. If you want to exactly do the same what I'm doing, then Google for this one and download it. So I'm just then selecting all my 4 materials, and the materials I converted before that in the Substance source. Then we have the normal one. I just need to enable my gamma, connect that with my first bump, which is already set up to a normal map. Then here is the one for the roughness. And I already also have a ramp if I want to change the values. Then I have a diffuse color. We don't need the ramp here. Put that in here as well. And we have a height object which goes into the displacement texture map. Overall, I'm not yet quite sure if we will need displacement. If we are that far away from the composition, I think we can just go with normals. And I have an additional bump map in here, but I guess I won't need that. And let's blend all the material together. And also this setup was a bit older. It has still the redshift noise, and I feel like the cinema noise is way better. So let's make this tiny, and we need tiny bit of bump. So overall we're adding some procedural imperfections to this material, which is quite nice. Then let's give it a quick save. And I'm just duplicating my camera. And I want to focus onto this object now. So where do we want to start? First of all, there my ropes. So, oh yeah, I see. I forgot to add the class tag in there. Class. I'm always mixing up what Shift Alt Control. Well, Shift Control gives you all of them, but doesn't places them into them. But so far so good. Then I'm closing these ones and I'm selecting all my class surfaces. And again, I don't want to have the subdivisions. I only want to have a little bit of depth, perhaps 0.5. Yeah, looking good so far. And perhaps we can give ourselves a bit more subdivisions, like 3. Then let's start with this first guy, and the complex material here is going to be class 01. So drag and drop that onto this guy. And let's see how our material looks. Therefore, I will just give myself a preview on there. And I think this looks already quite nice. But the displacement is obviously way too much. It's getting somewhere. 0.3, I guess, might be the correct thing. Yeah, I would say this is about it. Then to the texture. I'm just previewing this material itself. And I see how the stretching is. And I think that's already quite good. But let's just quickly also put in the UV object in there. And I'm pressing C to preview. And of course, the UVs are distorted. Select them all and make them smaller. So quick save. And I'm going into my folder. So the recordings. And I have some Photoshop files already prepared. It's just some type. So you can write whatever you want. And I'm making a little bit fun of, again, Max Salzborn. So he's a really cool guy. But he will get the joke. So I'm placing this material in here and pressing C to preview. And now we can see that it's totally distorted and we need to scale it down on, I'm sure I made it wrong, of course. So 5.1 looks about right. Let's see. I think the stretching is about the right thing. So 5.5 to 1. And the good thing is I don't have to move it around in the offset. That's kind of nice. So then let's combine this material with the diffuse. And therefore we will give ourselves a color layer. And let's connect my material, the diffuse of the shader, and then let's add my texture which I created in Photoshop, and let's blend them together by multiplying them. And then we connect this guy to the diffuse, and let's preview the whole material. And because we are on a good track, I will save that. So you can see I used green and black, blue and white, and black and white. But I kind of like this color here. Let's make it perhaps a bit brighter, a bit more saturated. So going back into the main camera, I would say it would be nice to offset the type a little bit to the left so we can read the off-grid a bit better. And therefore we need to offset the first value, and this is something of my liking. And also overall the look of this object looks a bit too fat, so therefore I will reduce the thickness, perhaps something like 1.5, 0.15. And I guess this looks nice. Cool, then I'll just need to duplicate my material quite easily and put that onto another one, the one on the back. And therefore I will also just keep the same type in here, and I will just offset it a little bit, and we'll change the color to the green one, and we need to go darker, and also let's make the type white and the object green. Therefore, let's go to the close-up camera. Let's have a look at the green value, and I want the green value to be more saturated and a bit more blue, but not too much. But of course, I want it the other way. So also when I'm looking at this thing here, I think this looks way more stretched because probably it's longer. So therefore we need to change our stretching. Actually, it was too much stretching, so I need to reduce that. Going to 3.5 stretching looks a bit better now, and perhaps you can scale down the height of the type a bit more, perhaps 1.3. And now we need to offset everything a little bit to the up, and a bit more, and a bit more. And that looks nice. Let's see. It's 4. Yeah, 4 is a better value. 4 and 1.3, and we offsetted everything a bit. And now I just want to change the color of the type itself. So the type should be green, the one we just built here. So I'll make it greeny, and put the type into this guy needs to be black. And the type needs to be blue. Green, sorry. And we need a mask. And I did it wrong. Okay, wait. The base color needs to be green. Nice. And now we need to connect layer color 1. Yeah. So I had a bit of a mind wrangle here. So just to give you a summary of that again. So my base color is green. Then I'm using my type as a layer mask, so layer mask 1. And the texture we are using is my layer color 1. So we are mixing everything together. And it can go, I would say, even a bit more darker. Nice. Let's zoom out and have a look on everything. This looks good. Also, a thing when I'm looking now at this frame is like we barely can see the cloth. So I'm going back to my close-up camera and let's have a look at my fabric material. And perhaps everything needs to be a little bit bigger. So let's go 0.4 and 0.8. So yeah, they are way bigger now, and I'll do the same for the material we built previously. So therefore I'm switching to the material and I'm just quickly selecting all of the materials, and I set 0.4 and 0.8, and let's switch back to the main camera and see. Yeah, now we can definitely see that, but for this one I would say we can go a bit smaller, so 0.5 and 1. And yeah, this looks nice. Let's save it. What next? Again, I'm duplicating this black material, and I have the October tutorial type as well here. So let's drag that onto one guy. perfect. Going into the material, and this one can also go a bit more even darker. So let's darken that up. Nice. Then I will go to my text file and I will replace that. So here's my folder. I have stoned, off-grid, and October tutorial. Let's drag the October tutorial into the path. And it's directly automatically updating. And I would say this time we go blue. So main color is, the type is white, and the object itself is going to be blue. Let's see where we're going. Close-up camera, let's see what's happening. And blue should be more up, a bit too much. And the type again here is just distorted, so it needs to get a bit bigger here, I would say. Yep, and 5.5 is a better scale for the thing. And the October tutorial one I like, so let's put it also on the back one. But I want another color there as well, and this time we will use just black. And yeah, by the way, I changed the height from this one guy, but I didn't do it for the rest of them, so let's change them all back again to a smaller value, something like 0.1. And from time to time, give it a save. Nice. So only one left, and the left one we will just take the second material and duplicate it. And you can see the type in here is also quite stretched, but I don't want to change the material itself because we have this on two materials already. Therefore I will just change the length here. And I think something like 45 will hit the right scale from the type. So yeah, we are having quite some variation and I like that. Let's again go into the close-up camera and just some basic easy thing. We can copy the same material from the floor reflective thing and copy it onto this guy, the steel. Actually, I already did that. So if I'm pressing C on the material to preview, you can see that we have some scratches in there. And perhaps to emphasize the scratches, we will also create the same bump map with this material and also using a tray planar node, because I don't know if they have UVs, and in this case it doesn't matter. So bump, but the bump should be very, very minimal because I only want to have a very slight effect. That looks good. A little bit of scratches and bumps. And again, because a lot of the 3D work is about details, adding some little nice things here, adding some imperfections, adding some broken corners, some particles, some, I don't know. You have to spend like time to really push it and make it nice. Therefore, I would say we are having a look at this guys. So again, zoom in camera to see a bit better what's happening. And yeah, perhaps like that. So what do we got? This is the material which was automatically created by the bridge. And it's quite nice. We have the albedo, the roughness, and the normal map. And you can see that's already doing very much. But let's say we want to even increase the effect of this look, and I'm connecting a displacement object in here. And this material was automatically saved into the folder from the bridge. And well, first of all, let's add this folder into our library from Cinema. So therefore, I'm locating the image, and you can see it's my user info documents Megascan library downloaded. And we will also go into my preferences, and preferences always takes a bit of time to open. cool. So then you'll go into your files, into the path, and I already added the folder. Yeah, cool. So normally I then could delete everything. Oh wait, let's delete the whole material and let's drag it into my path. Yeah, now because Cinema now has the folder itself, it doesn't make to create the whole path. You can just drag and drop it in there. And you can see Megascan did create a few more objects. And we have displacement material in here as well. And I'll just drag and drop that into the already built shader graph in here. And I'm connecting the EXR to the displacement. And then we need to, of course, add a redshift. They also already added a redshift tag, which is quite nice. And we just need to activate it. And I don't want screen space adaptivity. And let's go with 2 subdivisions. And displacement is on. So let's quickly see NB. And to check your mesh, I will create a wireframe and press C. Then you can see how high the tessellation of the object is. And I think we can even go one higher because this area is still, yeah, so 3 is good. Then connect the thing back to the output. And let's see. Then what we need to do. The displacement now is only pointing one direction, so it's only going up. That's why our ribbon gets lost. We can easily fix that by changing these 2 values, the new range and the old range, so the object should be now at the exact same position. Then I would say we can increase the effect of the displacement. So the maximum displacement perhaps will go to 4. And the displacement scale should be perhaps a little bit. Yeah, I think this is good so far. I like what's happening to this edge. Or let's see what's happening there. Now it's trying to calculate 21. Let's see what's happening. It's going crazy. So back to a more reasonable value. So yeah, 1.5 is cool. Then let's check that from my main camera. And everything still looks nice. So let's have a look at my final artwork. We worked on to this material underground, and we have these 2 materials, but we can actually leave them at default because we're not that close that we actually would need displacement. But let's also do it. That's easy because it's just one material and we have an instance of that. So go into the wall. This is my material. And we will add a displacement. And just go to one of the materials and locate image. And then we'll just drag and drop the displacement material in here as well. Connect the displacement to the displacement node and that to the output. And same again, or let's even extrude it a little bit. So I'm going minus 0.45 and plus 0.55. So it's extruding a little bit. That's still, or even more, 0.4, 0.6. Because sometimes I found that when you go 0.5, 0.5, the displacement sometimes gets weird. So I find out that it often looks a bit better if there's a little bit of positive displacement. So then nothing is happening yet because we need to activate the tag from this object. So going there and saving. Let's go to the close-up camera and see what's happening here. Perhaps we are a bit too close. Cool. So displacement, well, mostly I'm not using screen space adaptivity here, and let's try to see what's happening with 3 subdivisions. So wireframe, press C for previewing, and I think 3 is like reasonable value. So it's not that high tessellated. We could actually go 4 if you're closer, but we are not that close. So 3 is definitely enough for that. And I'd say this looks nice, but overall let's increase the reflectivity of the stone a little bit. So I'm changing the value of the reflectivity. So the brighter, the more reflective. So you can see it gets super reflective and then it's just white. So perhaps like 6 was a good value. Cool. And that's this, guys. Then the ropes. You can see we have some intersections here. Let's quickly fix that onto our ropes. So I am going into here, into my sweep, and we need to select the points. Which one is it? This one. And move it a little bit more to the side and a little bit down. So yeah, I think that's good. And to even start to see that better, I'm just creating a material. And let's make this one red. Nice and red. Cool. And I think that looks good. And this guy is also needs to go in a little bit more. So where's my spline? Change that a tiny little bit to the right. Yeah, and now it's at the perfect position. Cool. Then for the material of the strings, they're so small you basically don't have to do much or nearly anything. So I'm just putting in a bump and I'm using a Megascan noise. Let's scale this down to 0.01 and connect them all together. And 0.1 is enough from scale, so it's a little bit rougher and imperfection. So we don't need to look at the shaders, so therefore I'm putting everything a bit to the left side of the screen. And let's stay in here as well. And let's have a look at the light. So into my light, and I'll make it visible. Let's directly only start with the dome light and see what's happening. I would say perhaps we need to have a bit more shadow from the right front side, and therefore I will just copy my instance, so this guy, the window instance, and move it around. And let's see, it's in the frame. And I'm copying the instance again. So I'm kind of building a room like more and more, and these two guys can also go up. Nice. So yeah, let's have a look at the main camera. And yeah, now Redshift is crashed, so I need to restart. Save and restart. So we are back, and now we have more and more something like a room, and therefore let's have a first look onto my render settings. So this is my like basic setup when I'm starting the scene. I have 16 samples in the min and the max in the unified sampling, and that means I have 1 ray in reflection, 2 rays in refraction, 1 ray in light. I have 502 rays in GI, and I have only 5 bounces. But I want to have more like a GI world after we are more in a closed room. And also in the newer version, Redshift got better with their automatic sampling, so I will activate that. When I'm working on stills or like projects which are not that important, or like where I don't need this much of render time, I'll now go this way Otherwise I need to adjust all the settings to directly find the best thing. And yeah, optics, I don't know, it didn't work for very long, but it now kind of works. But I don't know, for me it gets a bit slower. I will activate it and you perhaps see. So 10 GI bounces and more GI rays. So I'm doubling the number. And we don't have to care about the sampling overrides anymore. We only adjust the quality with this slider. So 0.01 for now. Also, sometimes the optics works very nice, but in this scene it didn't work nice. It kind of made it weird. So I'll leave optics off for now. Then what you can do to even increase the strength of your GI look is if you go into the ray and last pass GI, if you make it like 1.5 instead of 1, we have way more GI bouncing around and the scene gets a bit more lighter, and I have the feeling it looks a bit more like like Octane. So then let's see what we can do with the light of the HDRI. I will turn it around a bit to get more light from the left coming in, so we have more like a rim light. So this is the wrong way of rotating, and yeah, I'm just spinning around and see what's, well, actually the light from the right side is also very nice. So we get this shadow from the metal thing here. And I think that's something I want to go with this time. So, but therefore I'll just duplicate my dome light and deactivate the first one. And I want to try out some other light as well. So let's have a look into my 3D folder, and I have quite some HDRIs. And probably you also have a lot of HDRIs in there. And let me try out something different. Well, let's go with a brighter photo studio. And let's see how this will look. So then perhaps we need another rotation here, and I'm just spinning everything around till I find something which looks kind of interesting to me. And yeah, I think this is kind of nice. We have some light from the right top and there's a shadow going on, and that could be also quite nice. But I think we should go with the first one. I think that's a better start. And then the overall look of this frame is still quite saturated, and the good thing about the HDRI in Redshift, we can just tone down the value here so that we won't have so much color in the light. And I think we need to increase the strength of the HDRI so more light comes in there. So that's cool, and that's my first thing I want to do. So think about it like you're in a museum and the sun comes out from outside, and you would want to put more focus onto your object, and therefore you would build up some softboxes. And my first softbox, so I'm switching the views here. My first softbox could be something from on top of it, and let's increase the strength too much. So, and I'm just moving it a little bit around to see what I'm getting there. And for example, this would be already quite nice. Let's make it stronger. So we have more focus, like way more focus on the object now, because the background is more dark and this object is way more brighter. Put that to the picture viewer. And I'm turning off the light from the top. And let's wait to refresh. And fit to window, again send to picture viewer. And now you can see the difference between what we just did. This looks also quite interesting, but we emphasize the sculpture way more now. So starting with that is cool. Then when I'm looking at the frame, I'm thinking about perhaps we can spin the HDR a little bit more so the shadow of the light has the same angle of the floor. Let's see if that is something we can achieve. So yeah, perhaps something like that. I think it's better. So 243 for my HDI here, so the top light. Then I would say this is quite nice, but what we can also do, let's duplicate the top light, and as we built before, I'm having these holes in there, and let's make the light smaller and turn everything else off to see what the light itself is doing. So for example, this is also creating a really nice light situation here. So perhaps this is even better if we move our light above the window grid we built here. So and let's also put the light from the HDRI back in, and now we have too much light. Everything looks flat and boring. So let's see where we should adjust. Yep, I think we should go down with the HDRI and focus more on the top light. And I think the top light can also be a bit less strong. Nice. So I'd say that's also quite an interesting light effect, and we have like this arch in the composition, which is nice. Then as a last step, I would not do that. I would want to also get a rim light, and especially in this area and in this area and here, the rim light's going to help us to even make a bigger contrast between the foreground and the background. And what I will show you, let's deactivate all the lights so you can focus on this only light source. And I am getting rid of the target tag. I don't need that anymore. So moving this up, and can be a bit smaller, pointing a bit more up. So a bit more smaller, and I want to first of all make it a bit stronger, and in the spread I will limit the spread of the light, so it's really more like a very narrow spotlight. Let's see where we want to go. I think we can even go closer and make it a bit smaller. Yeah, nice. That's very close, so it's pointed a little bit more to the left, so we get a bit more on this side. And yeah, let's turn on our other light sources. And I think that's really doing nice. Here we have this nice rim, and something's happening here and here. Let's give it a quick save. I think our new composition is better, definitely. Well, first of all, let's darken the floor a bit. I think there's too much light on the floor, and it's taking too much attention to your eyes. So let's drop down the gamma of the floor, and I will duplicate the floor, because the wall on the back was quite good if it was a bit brighter. And you can see now here, if I, for example, render in this region, that we are back on UV and the scale is really huge. But I think it's nice to see some imperfections on the back, but that's too much. So let's scale the material down a little bit. Oops, I scaled it up. Something like 70 is a good value in here. Cool. Then I can concentrate back on the floor planes, and they should go darker, and also they are quite saturated. So I'm dropping down the saturation on the floor. Cool, that's nice. And from time to time, give it a quick save. But for me, like, this line is now perhaps a little bit too much. Feels a bit distracting. So what's the correct one? This guy? Yeah. So I scaled it up a bit, and also the height can go a bit down. Cool. And also this guy has a little bit too much attention on himself, so I will scale that also a bit down so this edge is not so strongly. And cool. Then I think this is already way better. Then I see a little bit of a hovering here, looks like. Then therefore we can hide our lights again. And let's see these guys. Should go down a little tiny bit. And we can actually, wait, are they? We can scale them up a little bit. And the cloner can go down a bit more. And now the problem is solved here. That's cool. Let's go back into the main camera. And let me think. We could add something in the back here so this edge doesn't look so weird. So go back into the view here. And I'm just copying one of these tile objects, moving it a bit up, and I'm scaling it down and rotate it by 90 degrees. Oh, they're all also still UV. That's not right. They also need to be cubic because the floor object is quite, this UVs are stretched. So let's make this guy longer. And so now just moving everything a bit around to get a little bit extra detail in here. Then what else do we need? We want to have a little bit of a bokeh, so I'm turning that on, selecting my focus picker, and I'm picking the focus in the center of the object and give it a quick save. Let's compare the renders with the final one. You can see I did place a sticker in there that, well, we won't do that now. Besides from that, I think we are done. Let's make our final camera positioning. Yep, I'm really happy with this one. Then what you could also do, for example, sometimes I'm doing something in here and it looks quite flat and dull, and you can already go into your settings in Redshift without having to open it in Photoshop and everything again. And you can already give yourself color control, and I'm increasing my contrast. And you can also load in some LUT files, and there are a lot of in there, so you can play around and see what you like. And by pressing the up arrow, I can quickly go through there. And I think this Sony one could be nice, and you can also adjust the strength. So I'm giving it like only 20%. And with the curves, I'm not doing much. But we can also give them curves. But I don't know. Let's just keep it on the contrast. So that's quite nice. You can then, I don't know, change your camera or something, and the looks are already applied. And you can see my theme is already a bit slow because of some of the displacement objects. I would generally put them off till the very end and then put them back on for the final render. But I think this is quite nice. Just a few more tweaks. The background scaling is still too much. So let's decrease that a bit, and I want a bit more focus on this object, so therefore I will also increase the depth of field. And then that's it. So let's turn that all off again, and let's check for the renderings. So output, I'm putting out 240 by 1920. It's the current frame. Saving a PNG file, and I want to increase even the quality from the adaptive threshold, so I'm going down to 0.007 anyway, or even less, 0.6, because I'm anyway only rendering one frame. Let's see, we don't have motion blur, and that's perfect. Then I'm pressing S for save, and we are done. Let's hit on the render. So already done, only 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's very quick. So then I'm just opening Photoshop for the really last final touches to just mostly increase the curves. And then we can export everything and load it onto Instagram or wherever you want. And just one little thing in Photoshop. Probably you are all anyway Photoshop masters. But I wanted to show you something very quick. So here's the rendering, and I'll just drag that into my Photoshop. And Photoshop still thinks I'm on a bigger resolution, but here's the guy. So you can record your own actions. Just Google for it, and then you can make all your adjustments by one click. So for me, it's creating like a color lookup, a curve, a saturation, and it's nothing fancy, but it saves a little bit of time. And the look of this frame is still too flat, so I just need to go into my curves and increase the contrast a bit. And something like that. And in general, I would duplicate the layer and paint some into this guy. So for example, let's go for, wait, am I? Yeah. So I have 50% of strength, and I'm just painting like a black mask into this curves file, and I'm painting everywhere in there where I want the object to be a bit darker. So what I'm kind of doing with that is I'm painting a bokeh, like a darker frame from the outside. So let's see how that's looking, and we only need like 40% of that, and perhaps 40% of the original. So yeah, it's a bit more. Cool. Then the saturation, I have a +5 in here in general, but let's say we want to tone down the yellows a little bit, and the blues definitely up. So the blue guys should pop a bit more and they can be a little bit brighter. And green, also more saturation, definitely. Wow. And also a bit brighter. And red, let's see how, yeah, red can also go a little bit like that. Yeah. So before and after, just to emphasize a little bit of the colors. So, and then we are done. Save this guy and finished. So this was a different kind of tutorial, but I really hope you liked it. And I hope to see you next month, and yeah, have a good day, night, whatever. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Bye bye.